Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Her Story, the Pastor's Wife edition. And so I have the pastor wife of all pastors' wives, the one and only Dr. Sheila Bailey joining me today. Look, is she cute? Her little orange. Come on now, come on. Dr. Bailey is the founding pastor's wife of Concord Church, where my husband and I pastor, and where her husband founded Concord Church, and we'll be celebrating 50 years next year. Right. It's about to be a celebration. Yes, right. And so on. But Dr. Bailey, just talk to us a little bit about, just introduce yourself to us.
I am Sheila Bailey. I am a native of Stamford, Connecticut, who moved to Dallas, Texas in September of 1965 to enroll as a freshman student at Bishop College. I met E.K. Bailey there, fell in love, got married, and we have lived here ever since, except for about 3 months after our graduation. We lived in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, okay. Funky town.
Yes.
All right, so now Bishop College was known for preachers. So was Pastor Bailey was he majoring in preaching, or was he majoring in ministry? Did you know that he was going to, when you were dating him, that he was a pastor?
I knew that he was a preacher when I met him.
Okay.
He was majoring in religion and philosophy. I didn't know how many preachers were enrolled at Bishop College. I didn't know of their long lineage of producing preachers when I enrolled there. I wanted to have an HBCU experience.
All right now.
Having gone to predominantly white schools in Connecticut, and I'm a product of the 60s, I wanted to see what it was like in a total black school environment. My parents questioned that because they had migrated from South Carolina. My mother and my father had migrated from North Carolina, and they met in Connecticut. And they said, we left the South to go north, and now you want to go southwest, and you don't have anybody that's a part of your family that lives there. But I wanted to have that experience, and our pastor graduated from Bishop College. And so he said the best school to go to was Bishop. Now, you know I had to pass many wonderful HBCUs in order to come here. Wow. But I met him, saw a lot of other wonderful people that we still have strong relationships with, because it was Dr. Melvin Von Wade that introduced EK and I together.
That's right. Now, so what was your first impression of your husband's calling to ministry?
At first, I didn't consider the calling. I considered the man.
All right now.
Because I was sitting in the cafeteria, and this fine guy came in, had fresh cut, had a suit on, even a shirt and tie with a boutonniere. And I said, college students dressing like this? He must be a professor. And then someone yelled, Bailey is back. I said, well, that must be his girlfriend. But to find out that was his play sister, Patsy Campbell, who later married Reverend A.E. Campbell. Then after we met, really, I just became so infatuated with the guy, with his personality, with his gentleness, with his firmness, all about his personality. But then I knew that he was majoring in religion, and we talked about that. And later on, during our matriculation there at Bishop, we even took some classes together. So I knew that I was dating a preacher. Going to church, I came from a Christian home that my daddy was a deacon, mama was a deaconess. I didn't know about the role of a pastor's wife, because we hadn't even gotten to that point as far as marriage was concerned until about our junior year. I'm thinking, I hope this is the one. I hope this is the one.
All right. Okay. How did you know that he was the one? Was it just how his love of God, or just how he treated you, how he loved you, how y'all walked or talked, and the dating and so on? Listen, I already know he had a fresh cut. So
It was all of what you just described. Okay. What I saw, what I heard, how he made me feel as a gentleman. And now I was surprised when he would take me on walks on the campus, and they had a Bishop College park with the little cemented benches, and we would sit there, and I thought he was going to sing something from Motown, and he would start singing Amazing Grace. And I was like, this is different.
Amazing Grace.
Yeah. But he could sing, so.
All right now.
Okay. Our first date was to Dairy Queen. And I had a corny dog. We didn't have corny dogs in Connecticut, so that was fascinating. Second date was to church, and Reverend Wade was pastoring the Bethlehem Baptist Church, and EK was sitting there on the pulpit, and he looked good in a suit, you know.
It's something about a preacher in the suit.
Yeah. And I'm looking at him. I guess you say I was in the flesh because I was like, oh, he sure looks good to me. Then they asked him to pray, and he could pray. And then there was a time in the service that they asked him to sing, and he could sing too. So all that was wrapped in. Then I settled down to, what are the serious values of this? About this man really being a Christian and what his beliefs are.
Yeah.
But at first, it was what I saw and what I felt.
Yes. Listen, because I feel like sometimes when we're in relationships, like people will ask me, like, what was it in Pastor Carter? He's Brian today.
Yeah.
You know, what was in Brian? I'm like, when he said he was going to do something, he did it. So when he said he was going to call, he called. And it could just be the sweetest dates. It was nothing material. Like you said, you went to Dairy Queen. For us, it was walking on our campus and so on. And so, I mean, Bishop College, I was recently, it's now Paul Quinn.
Yes.
But I was on that campus a month or two ago. And so as you were describing how y'all were walking and talking, I was thinking about just the hills, because it's a hilly campus.
Right.
And so on. But yes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that.
Now, I must tell you, that suit that he wore that first day, he had worn that suit the day before preaching at the St. John Baptist Church in Oklahoma City. He was dressing to impress, coming back as a sophomore student. And it worked for me.
I love it. Listen, my favorite memory of Pastor Bailey, we joined Concord in 98. We got married. Okay, so we graduated in May. We joined Concord in June of 98. And then the thing that was so amazing that drew us to Concord was just the love that we saw. I mean, just as a newly married couple, we wanted to be at a church home where it looked like they like each other. They actually like they love each other. And the fact that your husband spoke to us, we were just like, he was like Michael Jackson to us. So yes, so just remembering that and just the love that we saw between you and your husband was just such an encouragement to a newly married couple joining a church.
Well, I am so happy to hear you say that, and we thank God for it. I knew he was such a friendly man and outgoing man. I had to grow in that area. I love people in my heart, but I was basically a very timid person, and when we entered a room, I felt like he had enough personality for everybody else. So for the introverts are out there, I feel you. I get, and it has been a evolving process for me, and that's a process through Bible study, through relationships and all. But before, whatever Bailey says was fine, because when we would walk in the room together, it was almost like, Bailey's here, and I'm holding on to Bailey.
Yes, listen, one of my favorite memories is y'all would go on vacation, and y'all would come back, and he would preach revival. He would preach that Sunday night at, I just went for a blank. What is that church?
Was it First Baptist Hamilton Park?
First Baptist Hamilton Park. That's when you knew Pastor was back.
Right.
And I remember he had a white cream suit, and I was like, he's feeling himself today.
Yes, he did.
You knew, he was feeling himself. But yes, Pastor Bailey, yes, he would dress, and it was real, yes.
And he started wearing that cream suit like on Easter. At the first church that he pastored, at the Mount Carmel church. At the first Easter, he went to, it was a store called Urban Maze that was downtown Dallas. And when he said, I'm going to wear a white cream suit for Easter, it's like, oh, you are. So every Easter, it almost became like a tradition. Pastor's going to be wearing the white suit.
Yes, I think that Sunday he had the white suit and he had a burgundy tie.
Yes, I remember that.
Now, see, I remember. All right, now. Okay, so how would you describe your role when you were a pastor's wife? And I feel like once you're a pastor's wife, you're always a pastor's wife.
I believe that too. In some form or another. Some of the responsibilities may change, but the influence is still there. Many of the relationships are still there. I believe that every pastor's wife will accept that you're first of all the wife.
Yes.
Don't lose sight of the wife. I know there many times churches may think they're getting 2 for 1, that we're getting the wife and she's going to help him in leadership. And there's a historical perspective to that goes cross-culturally as well as through the African American history too. But just knowing that I am the wife, I know him better than anybody
Ooh, that
else.
right there.
I am the one he asked to be his wife, to live with through better, for worse, from sickness until death. That I am the one. That there may be some that may be cuter, may be smarter, that may have more money, whatever they may have. I'm the one, baby.
I'm the one. Now say that right there.
I'm the one, and you do that with confidence. It's not arrogance, but it's with the confidence.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, depending upon what you're going through, you may feel like intimidated. You may feel insecure. You may start comparing yourself. And I did that at one time because he would come home bragging about certain women at the first church that he pastored. And I was thinking, oh, well, he wants this and he wants that. And I started acting like those women in certain ways. And he said, what are you doing?
That's not what I want.
He said, I married you just the way you are, and that's what I want from you. I said, well, okay
All
then.
right now.
Baby, we can work this
You
then.
gonna get all this ponytail.
Yeah, that's it.
Listen, I remember I went through a season where I was like in a sweatpants season. And so we went on a date, and we were getting ready to go on a date. And I came out with my little sweatsuit, and he was like, now listen. Stephanie, it's been a hard week. He was like, can you please? And I was like, all right. He was like, Stephanie, remember when we would go on a date before the kids and you would I was like, all right, I'm sorry, babe. I said, I've just gotten into kind of just a thing. He was like, come on now.
I went through that with a favorite nightgown, a favorite robe.
Yeah.
That certain times, okay, we'll freshen it up, we'll spruce it up when we think, oh, this is the night, this is the night. But other times, oh, these kids, 3 kids, and I'm running here, I'm running there. It's clean, I've showered and all, but let me just run this same uniform. But we had to keep that spice in the marriage.
yes. Look.
Because they're going out and they are among other attractive women and all. And we want to always have their interests back home. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do it every night.
Oh, yeah, I'd be exhausted.
Yeah. But know what he likes. And yes, serve your husband, serve the church, love the people. We'll talk about all of that. But he's a man, first of all.
Oh, yes.
And you know what he needs as a man. I knew what he needs as a man. We know how to light that fire.
All right now, look.
And I had an older mentor that told me, if you can beat me rocking, you can have my chair.
I think I know who said that. Listen, I was in her presence one time and I kept feeling like, I don't need to know this side of you. Look,
yes.
her story after dark, but no, all right,
right.
We have to have an off-camera discussion about that.
Yes, talk about that.
But yeah, that is so true. Your first ministry, I feel like, as a pastor's wife, is home.
Yes.
And I often meet other pastors' wives, and they'll talk about, well, I like to know everything that's going on. I was like, that's you. But you have to do what works for your your household, works for your man. And I know his cycle. I know what he needs. I know what he wants. I know when he needs me to be quiet. I know when he comes home. I can't hit him with, hey, I can't hit him with that because I do not know what he's faced that day. But I have to take in consideration that he needs time to decompress. So if that means him watching Family Feud, that's his favorite show. Watching Family Feud and watching Steve Harvey for a minute before I can hit him with, listen.
Yes.
It's so important. It's so
very,
important.
Very important.
You have 3 adult children.
Yes.
So just tell us a little about your family life and what it looked like in relation to ministry.
Well, I have 2 daughters, as you know the entire family. 2 daughters are the oldest, and then the youngest is a son. I don't know how he talked me into that 3rd one.
Ours is a product of a marriage retreat, so
That it?
We love you, Carson, but you're a sweet surprise.
EK had told me, he said, Sheila, we needed to try one more time for the boy. But who says if we try, we're going to get a boy? Well, we won't know until we try. And if we don't have a boy, then the Bailey name would die. So he played that card on me. And then there it was 8 years later, then here comes Iman, whom we love dearly.
Yeah.
But we love family, we love children, and the children were very, very important to us. We wanted them to know the Lord, accept the Lord. Family devotions were very important in our family. At first, the girls were looking at us like 7 o'clock in the morning before we go to school.
Ooh, y'all real serious.
Yeah, and it was daily bread, which only took 5 minutes, and he would set the standard that, and you're going to have the right attitude, you're going to listen, and I'm going to ask questions, and if you have a bad attitude, then you're grounded for the weekend.
Ooh.
So that was the incentive.
I bet everybody was like, yes, Genesis.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever he was out of town, and many times that was frequently, then Sheila, you are going to conduct the devotion. And as the girls became teenagers and as Iman grew, then they would take a day in reading the devotion as well. We knew that it was a challenge because sometimes our husbands don't even know what their day is going to be like.
Right.
It can be set on the calendar one way, and it just takes one call from one family that someone has died, someone's about to die, somebody's being rushed to the hospital, somebody's in jail, all kinds of emergencies that may come up. So the soccer game that he said that he was going to attend, the ballet recital that he said he was going to go with you, that it is canceled. So dealing with the disappointment, my disappointment, then being that buffer between he and the kids. Why didn't Daddy? Daddy didn't do it the last time, and many times he's feeling sorry about that. Trying to be that buffer to explain what Daddy's role is. That he is a preacher who's telling people about Jesus Christ, and people need help. And these different things come up without trying to give personal business to them and all. But never doubt that Daddy loves you. Also, the importance of a calendar. Now, that really helped me. I kept the calendar at the house. I would let him know, okay, Iman's soccer game is Friday, such and such a place, this is the particular time. And then Thursday night or Friday morning, okay, I'll see you at the soccer field. What? What do you mean soccer field? We talked about it. We didn't have smartphones back then.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, well, we didn't have all that. So it was something just as simple as, I'm going to give you the soccer schedule. And whatever the girls' schedules might be for their different activities. And will you take it in? Then we had to talk about, no, just don't give it to him. He said, give it to my administrative assistant.
Right.
And she would put it on the calendar, and then he would tell her, remind me of it, block it. So unless it's an emergency, this is where I need to be. Listening to our children was very important, and you know all three. Although they're grown, I still say children, either adult children, you know all three. Your dear friend and I were going to spend mother and daughter day together one afternoon. And we went out into North Dallas, and we're having a good time, just the two of us. And it's almost 5 o'clock, and I said, oh, I got to go back home. Why? I said, I forgot to tell Daddy that I wouldn't be home to have dinner. Now, some people may have said he was spoiled, and if so, I spoiled him, and it was
your
okay.
man.
Yeah, that's my man. I spoiled him. My mama did the same thing for my daddy. I said, he doesn't have anything to eat. He doesn't know how to look in the refrigerator and get something to eat. She was so heartbroken, disgusted. I didn't know she was mad, not angry. She was mad. So that means we had to drive from North Dallas back to Oak Cliff, walk in the house, and she speaks to him, but it isn't too much that's said. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. She goes in her room. He and I are in our bedroom talking, and then all of a sudden, I hear the music turned up so loudly. It was like, we don't play music this loud. I said, wait a minute. Let's listen to it. What is she playing? Because I think she's sending us a message. And the message was, the song was, I'm Not Your Superwoman.
Oh, I thought she was about to play Beat It.
That would have been a good one too. I'm not your superwoman.
What?
And he said, what is she saying? I said, she's upset because I had to come home in order to make sure you had something to eat. Then he tells me, well, why didn't you stop at a payphone and call me? I could have gotten something to eat. Well, it's too late now. And this was it. So listening to them. So that was a teachable moment for us to go in and say, this is how you can handle this. Don't turn this music up like this.
Yeah.
We need to talk about this. So then there were times once the church started really growing, and we started having two of the two services. He was like, "Oh, now Sheila, I can't stay and greet all these people in between services." And he was such a people person. He said, "So we need to start having people come over to the house." Okay.
Yeah, y'all did.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yes.
Conferences. The buses would come up to the house. I'll be telling the neighbors, and you'll see a bus coming up and people coming out. And it was the daughters that said, "Daddy, we're either cleaning up for a party
Or getting ready.
or clean up after a party. We had to be on our best behavior. Daddy, sometimes can't we just have a break?" And that's what turned the light on that this is home too. How can this be home as well as ministry to other people?
Wow, that's so good. I love, you set such a good example of just letting us realize that we have to listen to them and take their feelings into account and just not be like, you just need to be grateful.
Right now, because sometimes if you can't see the bad day, we might say that. And then Iman would say at times, once his dad had a cell phone, Daddy was there, but he was on the cell phone. So they're paying attention even when they're sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
That when you're present, you got to be present.
You have to be
mind,
present.
body, spirit, all of that.
I think one thing with raising children is they realize the role. They don't realize it growing up, but I feel like they kind of started to really realize it in middle school.
Yes.
Definitely in high school, and then now that Kennedy is in college and Caitlin's graduated, they're very protective. The girls are very protective. Carson is kind of like, he's kind of protective, but the girls are very protective, and they're like, don't they realize that y'all have to do this, or don't they realize that you've been at this funeral and that you? And I said, yes, but it's okay. This is, and they're like, okay, Mom, but not too much. Are you gonna work out tomorrow? So they'll be more protective of what's your self-care looking like, Mom.
And that is great that they're looking at for both of you, for Dad and for Mom. Once the girls got to be teenagers, he would take them on one revival per year, and they would take one child, so she would have that time, and she would have her room, and he would have identified somebody within the church or requested if there would be a female in the church that could do some things with them. But I'll never forget when one of them came back, I think it was from D.C., and said, I'm sitting there in the congregation, and Daddy walks out, and the two ladies behind us said, ooh, he's nice looking. She said, I wanted to turn around and say, that's my daddy. My mama's at home.
They do be horrified when somebody hits on you.
Yeah.
I was at the gas station and Caitlin was like, oh my goodness, Mom, that man. I was like, I still have it.
Right.
Recognize. But listen, this question, can you share a story or a moment from your time as a pastor's wife that has particularly inspired you?
There's so many. Being 77, I can go way on.
You're almost 77.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I need for that to be recorded, and I can play that back.
Come on with your bright orange, with your little,
Well, thank
your
you.
bows,
I don't want to be left behind.
I know that's right.
If anything, you may have to pull my coattails sometimes and say, okay, now that's not age appropriate.
No, listen, now you come with a body piercing.
No, I promise you, I'm not going to do that. Now, what was the question again?
Okay. So, share a story or moment from a time as a pastor's wife, or even now that has particularly inspired you.
Okay. Let me just lump it together, if you don't mind, and just do like that when you've heard enough of it. We serve a God of all seasons, that he would take an 18-year-old in Stamford, Connecticut, and bring her to Texas, send a 18-year-old who was born in Marshall, Texas, transplanted in California, bring him back to Texas, unite them. And I've witnessed God be a provider and a protector in my all in all, but just focusing on the provider and the protector. As a young woman, the true story would be when we only had enough money to buy diapers and birth control pills.
Listen, don't miss that diapers and birth control pill.
Had to have both of those. And he was feeling depressed because there was need for more money, and he was a hard worker and a provider. And we were down to bare cupboards. And he said, I'll be back in a little bit. And he went over to one of his friends' home, Reverend C.C. McNeely. And McNeely would just make you laugh. And when he got ready to leave, Reverend Mac said, Bailey, come back in here. I have just had a cow slaughtered, and I got a lot of food here. Take these bags and get some things for you and Sheila. And he brought home roast and ground beef, all the different cuts of beef. And when he brought it in the house, you could tell how excited he was. Both of us were happy, thankful, praising God, just crying. And while we're crying, the doorbell rang and wondering, who was this? And I got to wipe my eyes, because otherwise they'll be thinking we in there fighting when we're praising the Lord. So when I go, the person has left a box there. We, to this day, never knew who that person was. And it had all kinds of vegetables, of potatoes and carrots and celery. Look at God. That's what he did. So a God for all seasons as a young woman. Then dealing with the church, the First Church had major opposition at times, that they even took him to court. And some of the lies, that he was stealing the money. He didn't have access to the money. How could he even do that? Because of the church fire and the church burning, saying that he burned the church when he was laying in bed with me and we lived 20 minutes from the church. And yet God still took us through that church fight. And that church fight, I had to go to court with him pregnant. And so wondering, as the old folk would say, how is it going to mark the baby? All of that. And while being pregnant, that's when they voted whether we still want him to be our pastor or not. And to see people plot and get another bus to go to a nursing home and find people who had never been a part of the worship service while he was pastor there for 7 years to come. And they were there, and as we're walking up the stairs to the Bishop College Chapel, because after the church had burned, that's where we worship. And one man stopped my husband and said, who is the blankety blank we supposed to be putting out today? Oh. And my husband, how broad he was, he said, must be me. And yet, when the vote was all over and that crowd was applauding that you're no longer our pastor, God still provided.
Come on.
And 2 weeks later, after he had prayed, other members came up to him and said, but Pastor, we believe in the vision that you had. We want you to be our pastor. He said, I need to pray and fast if this is what God wants me to do. And long story, fast forwarded, is that he said, we will. God has placed it on my heart to organize. And that's how Concord was organized. So then my role changed from just being a suitable wife, going to church, being there for Sunday school, 11 o'clock service, 3 o'clock service, 6 o'clock BTU, 7 o'clock service, back on Monday to be a part of senior mission, to now there's a new vision. And Concord is organized, so that means working. And the people sacrificed so while we were there at Bishop College that a few months later we had raised enough money that we were able to purchase the church at 3410 South Polk Street. You've seen the motorcade pictures, all of that. So my responsibilities changed as a pastor's wife from being more of a spectator, worshiper, to now the leadership. Pastor said, Pastor Bailey, didn't you say that your wife majored in Christian education? He said, yes. Said, we have classrooms now where we didn't have classrooms before. We need someone to organize the Christian education ministry.
Come on.
Can she organize us? Can she be the Christian education director? So for 7 years, I served as the Christian education director, and yet God still provided. Then he came down with his illness, right at the peak. Right at the peak of ministry. We've already moved. We're on, it was Boulder at that time, and yet he started having pain in the side and found out that was kidney cancer. 4 years later, then ear problems, thinking that, and he laughed about it. He said, girl, we getting old. I guess I'll need hearing aids. And to find out that was the nasopharyngeal carcinoma. And so my role from being very active at the church meant that I was going to be the primary caregiver. And I knew God was responsible for the healing, but I was working as if he needed me and depended upon me to do it. So all that I had to do to take care of the medicines, to take care of the doctor's appointments, I couldn't do it without the Lord giving me a team throughout Concord. Concord, through the leadership of the deacons, the elders, the pastoral team, the pastors, they showed love. He is a God for all seasons. And then when he passed and went home to be with the Lord, my heart was broken. How am I going to make it? A church is looking at me for strength. A family's looking to me for strength. And I'm looking, God, I need you. A woman came over and was praying with me, and she's holding my hand. Now, Lord, let her know that you'll be a husband. And her prayer was good. It was good. But I'm thinking, Jesus, I want EK. I want him. Yeah, and I would go to his closet the first week and just smell his clothes, trying to smell that fragrance that was still there. I would be like the little dog that would go under the bed and didn't want to come out. Lord, I don't want to come out. And it was only God's word that took me through it. And when I read 2 Kings 4:1-7, you can live on what's left.
Ooh.
That's what carried me through. And then to see that you and your husband came and just loved on me so many different ways. It still brings tears many times, because he's still a God of all seasons, from no money to some money to moving to houses, but God never left us alone. So whatever you may be going through, you're not alone. Whether you're on Route 2 or you're in the metropolitan area of a big city, you are not alone. God sees, God hears, God answers, God provides. And I'm a living witness. And you and Pastor Carter have given me gifts upon gifts that you have many different gifts and filled with creativity. And didn't he preach last night? All the power. But how you share so much love with me. People that have not met you say, I love them, and we haven't even met them because of what they have done. So to all who's listening, you're not alone. I don't know what the future holds for you, but God's got you.
God's got you. But you know, the best advice you gave me, that whole season was like a blur. But the one thing that sticks out to me was your advice was to love the people. And that's the one advice I give to any pastor's wife who's like, what advice would you give me? And they always be like, I thought you were about to tell me something just real deep and this, that. But loving the people has been something that has helped me in this journey. And just watching you lead with grace and just walk through basically a faith walk and so on is something that as a country and as a church that we love you for, we admire you for, because we all know no matter if you're in a great season right now or you're kind of like, well, it's all right now, or it's a bad season. You have to have somebody that you can look at and say, you know what, I've watched how they walk through that season. I know I can walk through that season because I saw how they walked through that season. So I thank you I thank you for just your friendship. I thank you for the wisdom. I thank you for just the love that you have, not only for pastors' wives, but just people, period. So listen, First Lady Dr. Sheila Bailey, how can we follow you?
You can follow me at Sheila Bailey Ministries or SheilaBMinistries.org, a nonprofit ministering to women in all seasons of life.
Amen. We are so excited that Dr. Sheila Bailey, I'm going to have you back because I need a part 2. I have so many more questions and so on. But
it's been an honor.
I know, look, we're going to have you back. So do know this is going to, we're going to have another conversation.
Okay.
But listen, y'all, thank y'all so much for joining us on Her Story. Catch us for like part 2.
Okay.
It's coming pretty soon. Y'all take care and God bless.
We love you.